Hello guys, how's it going? And welcome back to the channel. And today is another episode of the Mastercast for episode number 3. And today we're going to be talking about the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix for F1 2023. And it was a race of two halves, you could say. Obviously, we had the likes of Leclerc and Verstappen out of position, and that was hopefully going to make the race quite exciting. You know, we've had a few races where it has been quite exciting over the years, well, over the last 2 years, should I say. But yeah, it was a race of two halves. The first half was quite action-packed, and then it kind of drifted off towards the end of the Grand Prix, but kept us on our toes because of stupid FIA decisions, which I am obviously going to get into. But without further ado, let's get into the race reaction for Saudi Arabia. So once again, we'll start with Red Bull then, because they were the team at the top once again, and Perez actually taking the win from pole position as well. Obviously, Verstappen had the issue in qualifying, which put him with a, well, not a grid penalty, but started 15th place, but still took a new gearbox for the extra one that he has. So he will probably have to, well, he will have to take a penalty at some point for a new gearbox. But other than that, Perez, yeah, very happy weekend for him, I would say. Like I said, got the pole, and it was an incredible lap, by the way, as well. And for Leclerc to only be 1.5 tenths off his lap, I thought was really impressive, but we'll get on to Leclerc in a second. But yeah, got the pole, Perez, and then lost the lead to Alonso at the start of the race. That was a bit of a shame for him at the start there, but apart from that, once he got back past Alonso, which was always going to happen, that Red Bull is rapid in a straight line, and yeah, Alonso had no chance whatsoever. Yeah, so unfortunately couldn't keep the lead, Alonso. But yeah, Perez, apart from that, once he got past Alonso and the little blunder he had at the start, well, that was it. That was pretty much it. He led the whole entire Grand Prix, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, didn't look back whatsoever. Even when Verstappen was in second place, kept the gap around 5 seconds. And that was all she rode for Perez. And obviously, the interesting moment in the Grand Prix was when Verstappen was in second place and they were training fastest lap, and then the engineer came over the radio to say about, you know, engine modes and sort of what to do and how to drive and stuff and what sort of lap times to do. But I think they were giving Perez the wrong information to try and make Verstappen catch him. That's what I basically think went on, because, you know, Verstappen is number one in the team. It's obvious, but I feel like Perez is going to put up a bit of a fight this year, and considering that Red Bull are the only guys out in front at the moment that are looking like they can challenge for the championship, I think it could get very saucy between those two, and I feel like it could maybe turn into a scenario of Hamilton and Rosberg. I could really see it happening. I just don't feel like Perez is quite on Verstappen's pace, and that's obvious. You know, Verstappen's the best on the grid. I hate to say it, but it's true. But yeah, I feel like it could turn into a little bit of a sour moment, especially after last year, obviously in Brazil, and all the times Perez, you know, helped out Verstappen all those times in 2021. But we'll wait and see. Obviously, you know, Perez is very good on a street track, and that's exactly what Saudi is. But nevertheless, I feel like he doesn't have, like I said, the pace throughout the entire year, if that makes sense. So fingers crossed though I'm wrong, and I would love to see the championship go between those two, because I think it would be absolutely fireworks. And it's just so cringy as well in the interviews afterwards and stuff. You know, you get Christian Horner saying it was Perez's best drive, and I swear he says that every single time. And it's like, it almost comes across as fake when he says that. Well, to me it does anyway. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird feeling that. But Perez, like I said, should be happy with the result, and it was actually quite funny watching him celebrate in front of Jos Verstappen as well. I thought the face on Jos's face was just yeah, not happy, and yeah, well, it's obvious why, but then again, it's just the Verstappen family and the Verstappen fan base, so yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, Perez, I think, should be definitely happy with this weekend. It wasn't really in doubt, and yeah, it was definitely deserved from the Mexican. Verstappen, on the other hand, well, first of all, went wrong for him in Q2. It looked like, well, he was going to get pole without a shadow of a doubt, but Perez's lap, you never know. It might not have happened, but I think he was going to get pole either way. But in Q2, he had the transmission, I think it was, that went or it could have been gearbox. I'm not sure if they're the two of the same things. I'm not very technical when it comes to that sort of thing, so please don't slate me. But yeah, Verstappen having the issue in Q2, which, like I said, demoted him down to 15th place for the Grand Prix. So we had some action, hopefully, during the race if it was going to be sort of a dull one. But yeah, made his way. Well, took a while for him to get up past a few cars. I think he got to about P13 of the start, and then was stuck behind the two Hasses for a few laps. And I'm like, I thought he'd be past these guys now. But yeah, once the DRS was enabled and he was in the groove, he was just flying through the cars, which is what you expect, really. And then, yeah, like I said, got really helped out by the safety car, which, for a second, let's just talk about that, because Lance Stroll DNF'd in the Grand Prix on lap 19, I think it was. Why on earth did the FIA think, oh, let's pull out a safety car? That was the most baffling safety car I've ever seen in my entire life. It didn't even warrant a virtual safety car, let alone an actual safety car. So, yeah, I don't know what was going on with the FIA there, and obviously we'll get onto the FIA for the other incident later on, but I think there were some serious mistakes going on, because the car was literally parked right behind the barrier. And yeah, of course, it just had to favour Red Bull, managed to do a double stack, and then Verstappen was in P4 and managed to keep his position after literally everyone pitted on the previous lap. I'm pretty sure it was the people that he was sort of fighting with, like the Ferraris and the Mercedes. So yeah, that kind of really helped him out, and it was just, yeah, absolutely baffling to me as to why that happened. But that sort of helped him out in the Grand Prix, and then finally made his way past George and Alonso as well. And then it got to the point where, like I said, Verstappen was asking about the fastest lap, and they were trading it, and then he was like, I want to know what the fastest lap time is, and the engineer's like, don't worry about it. And he's like, I'm going to worry about it, because, you know, he's in the championship fight. He's Max Verstappen. He wants first no matter what, and he wants as many points as he can. And I understand, like I said, when you're fighting for a world championship, no matter how many times you've won it, you got to have that mentality. But the thing that annoyed me with the Verstappen the most is in the interviews afterwards, in the press conference where the top three sit down on the couch or whatever it is now, and he was just saying all these weird comments like, oh, I'm not happy with P2, I'm not here to be P2, and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I understand that, you know, he's had a bit of bad luck this year, but it's like, come on, you've got the best car on the grid, you've still got second place after starting 15th, and I'm just like, and you got the fastest lap as well, and I'm just sitting there like, people call Lewis Hamilton arrogant, okay, and I don't understand why. Not just because I'm a fan of his. There was a time, like I said, I think I mentioned this before, in his younger career, where he was a bit silly with some of the things he said and a little bit out there, but just the way Verstappen was acting, I could never imagine Lewis doing that. Even the scenario with Rosberg and everything that he was doing, I would never have imagined Hamilton doing that sort of thing. But Verstappen just, yeah, it really annoyed me. And again, I know you have to have that sort of mentality, and that's the mentality he has, but doesn't mean I have to like it. So yeah, I understand he's going for a world championship and he doesn't like Perez that much, whatever. It's still a team effort, and I just think that was way over the top. And he's well, I would say he's too big for his boots, but he's not, because he's a great driver, and there's no doubting that. I just feel like the way he went about that was a bit weird. Maybe he was just trying to get in Perez's head, I don't know. But either way, Verstappen P2 and a whole load of points for Red Bull. So yeah, they've definitely won this year's Constructors already. I honestly can't see anyone catching Red Bull. Especially, well, I can, but I think by then it'll be too late. A bit like Mercedes finally getting really good at the end of last season. I just think it's going to come too soon, too late. And yeah, they're not going to be able to challenge the likes of Red Bull. So it looks like it's over, but it will be interesting, like I said, to see if Perez can take the fight to Verstappen, because he proved that he could keep the gap to 5 seconds to Verstappen and held him off. But again, it was, you know, different scenarios and stuff, which I understand. And he obviously started further back down, wasn't up at the start of the race. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out and see how Red Bull deal with that if it does get into that scenario. But like I said, I could really see it, and I'm really hoping it does turn into a little bit of a Hamilton-Rosberg situation, because I think that would be great to see, considering we're not really going to get a championship battle this year. Anyway, moving on from Red Bull, we're going to now talk about Aston Martin. Now, they had a bit of an up and down weekend, but we'll start with Lance Stroll, as I've already mentioned. I think he qualified around P6. And then, like I said, lap 19, I'm pretty sure it was, DNF'd from the race. I'm not sure what the issue was. I still don't know. I haven't looked into it yet of what his actual issue was, but I think it looked like a similar issue to Verstappen, just sort of the car went dead and just pulled off behind the barrier. I'll just reiterate that, behind the barrier. But yeah, the FIA still deployed a safety car for some random reason, but got off to a really good start, Stroll, as well. Round the outside of Sainz through that long left-hander before the sort of middle sector, which was a brilliant move. So fair play to Stroll. And on a good day, he is a very good driver, but I still just don't like his personality and stuff, and the fact that his dad's the owner of the team. I know that's not his fault, but again, it's hard to like someone in that scenario. But yeah, apart from that, he was having a pretty good race up until that point. Solidly in the points, and unfortunately had the DNF. So yeah, a bit worrying for Aston Martin as well with reliability, but then Ferrari have had a bit of unreliability, and so have Red Bull. So it's kind of 50-50 all at the top at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out for the rest of the season. Mercedes still the only team without a DNF in the top 4 teams basically. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Obviously, Mercedes weren't exactly quick last year, but if they can continue scoring good points with both cars, then that's how you win and get Constructors' Championships, no matter what. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But yeah, Stroll unfortunately DNF'd, and that was the end of his race. Fernando Alonso, on the other hand, had a complete different race. Like I said, got Perez into turn 1 at the start and did everything he could. But first of all, before all that happened, he was parked once again, just like Esteban Ocon in Bahrain, in his grid position, he was slightly to the left, if I'm not mistaken, and that warranted him a 5-second time penalty, literally like 2 laps into the race. So that completely sort of ruined the feeling of Alonso leading, because we knew that it wasn't going to be like that for the entire race unless he pulled out a 5-second gap. But like I said, he was never going to keep that Red Bull behind. It was way too fast, and Perez, like I said, did manage to finally get past him. So that was all fine. So when the safety car came out, Alonso decided to pit, which is fair enough. That's absolutely fine. And then they decided to take the 5-second time penalty in the pit stop, which was fine as well. However, people are saying that the mechanic with the rear jack was touching the car before the 5 seconds was up. And as you know, as from Bahrain, you will get a penalty if that is the case. And it's hard to say, because I think we've only seen it from 2 angles, and they're pretty much the same angle from the back. Obviously, the FIA have looked into this at the end of the race. 35 laps from when it happened to the end of the race, they finally made their decision after the podium celebrations. I hate this rule, and I think a lot of people agree, and I always compare it to football. And I hate comparing F1 to football, but it's like someone scoring a goal, and you don't know whether the goal is going to count until the game's ended. It's just madness, and I don't know why it keeps happening, and I do not understand why the FIA made that long of a decision for it, and it's just crazy. They have so much more data, so many more angles than us. I just don't honestly understand. And like I said, the whole thing with the safety car as well, I think there was some serious mistakes going on, because honestly it was just absolutely terrible, and it needs to stop because it is absolutely ridiculous. And it also not only ruins the end result, but it also ruins the race as well, because if Alonso got told that he had a 10-second time penalty, we would have seen him trying to build a gap to Russell behind. Russell would have been trying to catch him. It would have just made the race so much more exciting, but instead we have to wait until the end of the race with pretty much the same sort of race that pans out, because no one knows what's going on. Mercedes were even confused at the end of the race, and unfortunately George actually did get P3, but I haven't even spoke about this yet. It got overturned. The penalty that the FIA gave Alonso got overturned. I just cannot believe it. Like I said, it just almost looks like they're just making up as they go along, or making serious mistakes. It's just absolutely madness, and someone needs to get on top of it. And yeah, I don't know what's going on in the FIA room, but it's just year after year, no matter what they do, they are just always making mistakes. It's just ridiculous. So yeah, that's my rant over with the FIA. But yeah, Alonso managed to keep P3 in the end, so he managed to get the celebration, got demoted down to P4 for a little while, and then mentioned it in the interviews, and then got promoted back up to P3. It's just utter madness, and I hope the FIA sort it out for the rest of the season because it just really frustrates me. Anyway, take a breath. On to Mercedes now then, and like I said, George Russell, P4, got promoted to P3 and then has been obviously demoted back down to P4 again. But yeah, a pretty average race for Mercedes, you could say. Lewis Hamilton in P5 as well. They did get helped out by the safety car and managed to jump Ferrari. But apart from that, the pace wasn't really there. Lewis obviously went on to the medium tyres after the safety car when he came into pit and managed to go all the way to the end on those tyres, but he had really good pace and actually made the move around Sainz, I believe it was. So it was good to see Hamilton actually finally having some decent pace. And then yeah, got stuck behind George. There was no team orders, and so had to stay behind George. And then I think he just sort of backed off just to save his tyres towards the end of the race because everyone else was on hards. So yeah, pretty average race for Mercedes. They didn't look too disappointed afterwards. And even George Russell said Alonso's penalty was harsh. But, you know, that's the rules. And I was listening to a podcast today and they were actually saying, should they make the grid slots wider? Maybe because it's already happened. It's weird that it's happened in 2 races now with two quite experienced drivers. So it will be interesting to see if they actually look into that because, I mean, the cars are really wide now. And I think they did extend the yellow line so they can obviously see where the line is. But the actual grid slots themselves maybe need to be widened. I'm not sure. I don't even know if that's been sort of advised by anyone, but either way, that's maybe something they can look into. But yeah, a good day overall for Mercedes. I haven't really got much else to say on them, really. So yeah, an average weekend for Mercedes. George Russell P3 in qualifying as well. That was another standout performance after Verstappen's penalty. And then yeah, Hamilton didn't have a great qualifying. Pretty beat up after quali. But managed to put it back in the race. And like I say, did get a little bit lucky. But, you know, again, it's points. And points last year proved that no matter if you aren't doing that well and aren't winning races, at least you're getting those consistent points. And I think that's what Mercedes are probably going to have to keep doing this year as well. And just hope and change next year's car, because that's obviously what was the big thing coming into this weekend as well. Apparently Hamilton told the team that the car was crap and they just chose to ignore him, really. So, yeah, bit of a shame there, but nevertheless, it is what it is. Now we'll move on to Ferrari. Now, they had a very, very weird weekend. The whole way through practice, they looked slow, and Ferrari were like, yeah, it's okay, we're just sandbagging, it's all good. And I think that was a lot of thought on people's minds. But then it got to quali, and then it was okay. Sainz didn't do anything spectacular, and Leclerc's lap, like I said, Leclerc's lap was excellent, and I think he had to be because he knew he had the grid penalty as well, which was, I can't believe that actually happened. A 10-place grid penalty in race 2 is just ridiculous. But yeah, Leclerc put in a fantastic lap, so started P12 for the race, and then, like I said, did get unlucky in the Grand Prix, but the pace just wasn't there. In the race, the whole entire race, the first stint for Leclerc, he was kind of there or thereabouts, but then as soon as they fell behind Mercedes after the pit stops, like I said, yeah, they got unlucky, but they just didn't have any pace to come back through. And it's just, you think back to last year, the amount of pace they had at the start of the season, challenging Red Bull, getting 2 wins on the first 3 races. It's just, it's crazy how a year can just turn this whole thing around. But yeah, there's some serious work to do at Ferrari, and Mercedes as well, but Ferrari especially, they've got some real head scratching going on. And with Mercedes, at least you know what the problem is, but Ferrari, we don't really know. Maybe it's just because they're too scared to push because their car will blow up. It's like, drive slow and get to the end of the race, or go fast and blow up. It just doesn't seem to be working for Ferrari at the moment, and hopefully they can get on top of it, because like I said, it would be good to see someone challenge Red Bull. And like I said, Aston Martin, I would say, are solidly the second team at the moment, and even they can't catch Red Bull. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. But yeah, they don't look happy at Ferrari, and it's gonna be interesting to see what they can do for the rest of the season. But who knows? A team that did have a better weekend was Alpine. Esteban Ocon, finally, no penalties in sight, no weird grid positions, no spinning in the pit lane. He had a nice clean weekend, and you could actually see in the interviews how happy he was after the race, but it was really good to see. But yeah, double points finish for Alpine. Ocon P8, picking up 4 points, and Pierre Gasly in P9 once again after that really good result in Bahrain. And yeah, it was finally good to see Alpine sort of show their pace as well, because obviously in Bahrain, Ocon just had a miserable one and then DNF'd, and then Gasly was kind of out of position for Bahrain, but this time they definitely showed that they've still got the pace, and they still can pick up those consistent points, and hopefully they can keep that going for the rest of the season, because now Aston Martin have sort of overtaken them. I don't think they're going to be challenging the likes of Ferrari, Mercedes, Aston or Red Bull, so I think they're going to be sort of there around P8, P9, just on the fringes of points. But it'll be good to see how that goes. But yeah, Ocon, though, his race made contact with Piastri on lap 1, which completely ruined McLaren's race. I'll get on to McLaren in a minute, don't worry. But yeah, Ocon, had the contact with Piastri, but then for the rest of the race pretty much just stayed out of trouble, had a pretty good strategy, and managed to bring it home to P8. There was a little bit of argy-bargy after the safety car came in with Gasly, but that didn't really evolve into anything. They managed to, like I said, bring both cars home, and then Gasly's race, I didn't really see much of Gasly. Like I said, just the side-by-side action with Ocon is pretty much all I remember, to be honest. So yeah, but stayed out of trouble, picked up points for the team, and that's all that Alpine can sort of do at this point, because like I said, they're not really going to catch the top 4 teams ahead of them, so I think that's all they can really hope for, really. So a good day for Alpine overall. Next up is Haas. Kevin Magnussen putting a point on the board for a well-needed Haas team. Yeah, like I said, P10, it was really good to see Magnussen having that little scrap with Tsunoda towards the end of the race, getting really argy-bargy and really trying to go for those dive bombs as well, and finally managed to get the move done towards the end of the race. And Yuki was absolutely fuming on the radio, just comes over and just starts screaming, which is what he does best, it seems. But yeah, it was really good to see Magnussen pick up that point. And yeah, Haas are sort of there or thereabouts. The midfield down to Haas, down to sort of the last team, really. McLaren, I would probably say, are the last team at the moment. It was actually kind of good to see a little bit of pace from Haas, but like I said, that midfield is so tight. It's just crazy to say who's where at the moment. So yeah, doing the best he can for the team. That was really good to see. And Nico Hulkenberg P12. And yeah, like I said, didn't quite have the pace of Magnussen. I'm not sure if he got screwed over by the safety car or anything, but he was there or thereabouts. He was hoping for a little bit more, and he even said that in the interviews, I believe. But yeah, not too bad. But yeah, there or thereabouts with Magnussen. Not a million miles away. I think it was about 6 seconds off in the end, and he was sort of catching Tsunoda, I think, towards the end of the race as well. So not a bad day for Haas, and like I said, they got their first point on the board for this season as well, and only in round 2, so it could be a lot worse for Haas. But yeah, overall, a very, very good start to the season. Next up, like I said, Yuki Tsunoda, AlphaTauri, Yuki Tsunoda, P11, and like I said, just missed out on that P10 on the Haas after he managed to get past him. So that was a little bit of frustration there for Tsunoda, but it's good to see, like I said, passion. I don't know if you would call screaming down the microphone passion, but I suppose you kind of do, because it shows that he's determined and wanted to get that point like every driver would, but just missed out, unfortunately. But yeah, the AlphaTauri again, kind of like Haas, just sort of there or thereabouts with the Alfa Romeos, the McLarens, the Williams, and it's really good to see. It'll be good to see who sort of pans out. And who comes out on top in the constructors in the end, because like I said, at the moment it's kind of really hard to pinpoint where everyone is exactly. So if we have a crazy race and someone gets some good points, it might be hard for them to catch back up if they're only scoring 1 or 2 points. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Indeed. And De Vries, or Horses Du Vries, as my dad said, which I found hilarious. We kind of have our own nicknames for all the drivers, so it's kind of funny. But yeah, P14 for Nick De Vries, and I don't think that's too bad for him, considering that he missed the whole of FP1 on a track he's never driven before. I think he can actually be quite proud of that. Managed to finish ahead of both McLarens and Williams as well. So could be worse for him. But yeah, missed out in practice 1. I think he had an issue with his car the whole session. But yeah, not really much else to say on De Vries already. We didn't really see much of him. So yeah, AlphaTauri, no points unfortunately, but fingers crossed they can pick something up in the next few races to come. Next up, Alfa Romeo. And yeah, again, another team that we didn't really see much of. Guan Yu Zhou P13 and Valtteri Bottas P18. He had an absolutely awful race. The only guy a lap down as well. And yeah, not really sure what happened to Bottas, really, to be honest. He just didn't really look like he had pace. Maybe got screwed over by the safety car. I'm not really sure what happened, to be honest. But yeah, not a good day for Alfa Romeo. No points. And that's pretty much all to say on them, to be honest, because they didn't do anything. I didn't really see anything of them either. Next up is McLaren then, and this is where it gets juicy because my oh my, what a weekend to forget. I mean, I know Bahrain was bad, but this was just bad. Like, honestly, P15 for Oscar Piastri and P17 for Lando Norris. Norris, we'll start with him because he sort of screwed his weekend up in qualifying after hitting the wall on the last corner, which was a very amateur mistake from Lando Norris, and he went in that corner, really awkward angle, and I thought he just got in there too deep. But no, that wasn't the case. He did in fact hit the wall, and then that screwed his race. Screwed his qualifying. Couldn't go out again. The suspension was completely broken, and then obviously that put him at the back of the grid for the Grand Prix. And yeah, made contact. Well, actually no. Oscar made contact with Ocon, like I said, on lap 1, and then also being very tentative into turn 1 was Oscar. And then that, yeah, like I said, put Oscar into the pits. But then I think a few laps later, Lando hit that exact same debris that Ocon and Piastri left on the track. And I mean, you couldn't have written it. Honestly, couldn't have written it. And it wasn't like McLaren haven't had enough bad luck, and that's just the icing on the cake, to be honest. So yeah, P17 for Lando Norris last. Well, Bottas was in the race, but I think he also had an issue towards the end of the race as well, Bottas. But yeah, I mean, I just don't know what to say. He was having that little battle with Logan Sargent and, like I said, Oscar Piastri as well. Piastri was sort of showing Lando up as well, which I thought was very, very odd, coming towards the end of the Grand Prix. But yeah, I bet Lando is feeling a lot of pain right now, and I bet Ricciardo is wiping the tears away with these lovely dollar bills. But yeah, just don't know what to say about McLaren. Oscar, though, Oscar had a better weekend. I'd actually managed to get some running in the car this time around. But yeah, managed to make it through to Q3 in qualifying, and it does look quite good, that McLaren in qualifying, but on the race it's just not going out for them. And I mean, we didn't really get to see their full potential because obviously their race was screwed in the first half of the race, but nevertheless, it's yeah, not good. And it's not like they even had the pace to come back through the field. They just had no pace whatsoever. So yeah, I mean, it's very disappointing. And if you're a McLaren fan, I really do feel sorry for you, because hopefully you will understand how we feel being a Mercedes fan. So welcome to the club. Take your popcorn, take your snacks. But yeah, it's hopefully something that McLaren can sort out, because yeah, they had a bad start to last year, but they actually knew the issue. This year, I don't think anyone knows the issue, and I don't think McLaren themselves even know the issue. So God knows what's going to happen with these next few races. Hopefully they can turn it around and start scoring some points, because it's just awful at the moment. And it would be good to see Alpine and McLaren have that battle again. And who knows, maybe challenge the likes of Ferrari and Mercedes as well. We'll wait and see. But yeah, definitely a weekend for McLaren to forget. And last up, Williams then, like I said, Logan Sargent. He actually had quite a good weekend, I would say. The race doesn't show it with P16. But yeah, managed to get that really good lap in qualifying. But unfortunately got it deleted because he went over the pit entry line, which is technically exceeding track limits because you're not allowed to do it. I think it's also a safety issue as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, it got deleted. But Oscar said that the FIA, once again another FIA thing, the FIA need to be more clear in terms of making drivers aware of what they can and can't do, because Logan Sargent said he was doing that the entire weekend and nothing was said, and he does it in qualifying, and then it becomes a problem. And I think it's a stupid rule anyway, unless it is a safety issue, then I do understand. But nevertheless, yeah, he managed to get his lap time deleted and then tried to put in another lap as well. And I think he was frustrated. I think he spun, and then he nearly spun into the wall, coming through that really awkward changed corner this weekend as well. So yeah, definitely a weekend to forget for him there. But he managed to, I think, bring it back in the race. And like I said, it was actually kind of good seeing him fight the two McLarens. He was a bit of experience for him as well, and it was actually good to see him holding off the two McLarens for a little while as well. So it was really, really good to see. Alexander Albon, on the other hand, though, didn't have a good weekend. He was out in Q1, and both Williams were out in Q1 actually as well, which was surprising because they did look pretty good throughout practice. And yeah, obviously in Bahrain as well, they looked pretty good as well. But yeah, a bit of a disappointing weekend for Albon. But yeah, had a brake failure halfway through the Grand Prix, had to retire. And it was really weird because he got the brake failure sort of halfway around the lap, and then he carried on. He didn't come into the pits, and then had to trundle along, and then finally brought it back to the pits. So I don't really know what was going on there, unless they were trying to fix it. I don't know, which is why he stayed out. But yeah, a little bit weird from Albon. But yeah, that is pretty much it for Williams as well, and the entire grid. So yeah, a pretty interesting weekend, it has to be said, especially at the front. But like I said, it will be interesting to see what happens at the front with Red Bull. And it will really be good to see what happens with the likes of Mercedes, Ferrari and Aston as well. I think that is going to be a really, really tight fight, and it will be interesting to see who sort of starts developing first and getting those points in. And same with the midfield actually as well. It's just, like I said, you can't pick anyone who is the best in the midfield at the moment, because it does seem very 50-50. So, and I would argue McLaren are probably the worst team at the moment, which is, I can't believe I'm saying. I thought it was going to be at least AlphaTauri or Williams, but yeah, well, there you go, another year. A year makes a whole load of change. So it will be interesting seeing what happens in the next few races. But also, I just wanted to mention as well, I had an absolute stinker on my fantasy team. I had Stroll, Albon and Bottas, the two that DNF'd, and the guy who came last. So yeah, not a good weekend for me and my fantasy team. Let me know if you are doing it as well. Also, let me know your thoughts and comments of everything that happened in this Grand Prix. And as always, guys, if you did enjoy it, please do give it a thumbs up. As you can tell, I am actually on a new background as well. I hope you like it. I just thought I'd spice it up a little bit rather than having a still grey image on my videos. So I hope you like it. Let me know if you do. Like I said, make sure you subscribe to the channel as well, so you never miss out on any videos of mine or any more F1 related content as well. And I'll see you all guys in the next one. Take care.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind.